Um, I decided to come by this evening and talk a little bit about my best-selling ghost novel, Hand in Hand, The Ghost Woman Talks. Now, this novel, even though I have talked about it before, I will discuss an element of it, or I should say the creation of it, that figures very well in my composing it and writing it and plotting it and using atmospheric touches and everything in it. Um, Paranormal novels are not something that I ever thought I'd ever be writing, and or paranormal works. But I want to talk about what part memory played in this particular book, in the creation of this book, in the uh, budding ideas for the book, for the inspiration for this book. And of course, inspiration is not enough. You have the ingredients necessary to fashion a plot and characters come to life and all that. Excuse me. So I probably never would have written it except for the fact that you know I was just thinking about the Newfoundland folklore and the part that fairies and things like fairy blasts and things like this play in a lot of material in folklore in Newfoundland. So I thought of this story not so much as a fairy blast, but as a starter point to what became an amazing novel. And I say amazing, not in an egotistical sense, but I say it amazing because of the way I couldn't believe I wrote it because, and I think I wrote it the way I did. Well, then again, no, I can't say that because I did use, it just took off. And it wasn't just the key elements of the fact that it was based on a true story that, it took off on its own anyway. And the thing is, I had the starter point. I had the real experience of someone, that was in my childhood and young adulthood, and a friend of the family, and I heard this story all while I was growing up, and I had the key ingredient here, and it was only a matter of my channeling this memory, and of this man, this elderly man. He was an elderly man, but he was very sharp and a very healthy and a sharp man, and he had a very keen memory. So we just heard it as a story, like a story when we were growing up, and it was a horrific story, and it stayed with me. And I thought of that story, and I said, well, I think I'll try writing a ghost story. And all I was going to do was just, write a ghost story, maybe a short story or something like that. And I started off attempting to do that, write a short story. And it just turned into this novel. And I created the characters as girls and the characters of their parents and so on. And it just took off from there. And I couldn't leave it alone until I finished it. It just became, I was just obsessed. I had to finish it. And but what I'm saying is that, if you're stuck on wondering what to, if you're a writer and you're stuck on wondering what to write about and so on, just channel there's something there that you can dig into and then expand on it and bring it into something really worthwhile, that's publishable. So anyway, I just thought I'd come on and tell you a little bit more about the book because it's doing so well. And the incident in the story see, the thing is, the Celtic lore and the Celtic, yes, fairy blasts, in fact, what this man experienced in his youth, which was the crux of how I wrote this novel, or I got the idea for it. The old Celtic lore, which Newfoundland was a big, branched out into the way Newfoundland was in olden times and earlier times for a long time, and especially in rural areas. So it branched out into this, and this thing about don't build on a fairy path and things like that. Don't interrupt a fairy path, or don't block a fairy path where fairies reside. So in that way, I think that was the crux of what happened with this man. That was the old tradition, and it was quite strongly believed in, especially by Irish priests who played a large part in the dominance of communities in Newfoundland, rural communities especially, and they frightened the life out of an awful lot of people. So they came to these small communities, and they were believed. Everything they said, the inhabitants took it as law. They were believed, and the Holy Roman Catholic population of those areas, especially the Irish priests. So this is what happened with with this young man. He this is a true story I'm telling now. They went out to this isolated remote area to cut logs for fishing schooners, and when they cut the logs, they put them across this path, not thinking I mean, they went out for a week or so, and they planned it all. They were camping and all that. They had everything ready, and they had all their gear and all their supplies and so on. So anyway, they just kept on. They cut all this timber and so on, and they just piled it. What they didn't realize was that they piled it on this area that was supposedly where the fairies resided, and also the fact that there was a shipwreck in the same area about a year before. And not only did they pile the wood on a place where the fairies, resided, but they put it on a place where there was a horrific shipwreck a year before, and hundreds of people were drowned in the shipwreck. So, and this place, this pathway, was occupied by the spirits of these people, and as well as the fact that it was a fairy path. So, and when all this happened, the young man who was Dan Hennigan in the story, fictional name of course, but I mean this is true. This is what happened to the man that we grew up with and the man that told the story. His name wasn't Dan Hennigan, but I mean this is the true character, the person it happened to. And after they had done all this and they were going, ready to settle in for the night, he decided to go out and walk the beach for a little while or something. It was a nice night and everything. So when he was going in the door of their camp, something grabbed his arm, like a just a vice grip on his arm, and he couldn't see anything, but it was like a human hand that just grabbed his arm and would not let go. So this is why the story is titled Hannigan's Hand, because his arm and hand became blood poisoned, and this is true. This is a true story that this novel is germinated from. So he couldn't get away. He was almost trapped, and just this vice grip on his arm was really hurting and everything. So at the point that this happened, oh yes, I forgot this part. He saw a headless man on a beach, and this was the story that we heard. Was the man with no head was the title of the story we heard, because we always called it, oh, we want to hear the story of the man with no head, even though it was frightening us to death, but we wanted to hear it anyway. The story of the man with no head. He had seen a huge man on the beach while he was walking, and he had no head, and he was all blood and gristle and all this. This is true. This is true, and that's what really happened, and that the novel germinates from, like I said. So when he went inside the camp, finally he got in somehow, he was screaming or whatever, and the whole camp started to shake, and there was beds coming off from the walls, and there was, everything crashing all around, and it started to shake, even though it was a real calm night, there was no wind or anything. everything was going mad inside the camps. There was 2 camps joined on, and there was bunkhouses there, and they were falling off from the walls, and it was just chaos. And after a while, like for no reason at all, everything settled right back, and everything got okay. So this man was sent home because he was traumatized and everything, and his arm started to swell up and break out in blisters, and everything happened to his arm. So this real man I'm talking about, and he went to a doctor in St. John's, and he was sent home and so on, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And he went to the priest. Finally, he went to the priest. And the priest looked at him and said, "You were cursed. You have something in your arm. You got to get that out. I got to lance your arm because you got an evil spirit in your arm." So this really happened. So, like in the book, this is the way I described it in this book is the way it exactly happened. Now, I may have embellished some details about when he goes up to see the priest. I may have embellished some details about the house itself, the way it looked, and where the priest was holding this knife like it was a weapon, a thing, like in an exorcism or something. That was embellished, but everything else about the way I describe it in this book was true. So I took that and I manufactured this horrific story about, the character Dan Hennigan. He was not supposed to tell this story, and now that's fictional because I just put that was the way I plotted out the novel, and that came from my imagination. All the rest of it. And all the things that happened was my imagination on the beach and the ship and all the ghosts that came in off the ship and all the things happened to the girls and so on and so forth. And the house itself, how they had to be sold because it was demonized, it was possessed and all that. So that's fictional. But the part about seeing this man with no head and his hand and arm getting all swollen up and things like that, and the priest lancing the curse out of his arm. That really happened. That really happened. And the priest said to him, "You have a bad curse because you were on this pathway. You blocked this pathway, and these were mariners that were drowned during this shipwreck and so on. And you're also on a fairy path, fairy path, you don't dare go on a fairy path. That's what the old story is. And you certainly don't dare to build anything on a fairy path. I mean, they would apparently this was quite believed years ago, the Celtic lore, that if you build something on a fairy path, forget it. It's going to your home is pretty well gone because you'll never be happy there. So there were even reports of houses being just lifted up and taken off and just blew away or taken away by the fairies. So, but anyway, he was doubly cursed, really. So I just wanted to give you an example of what can be done when you delve into your imagination and delve into some of your memories, and you want to write about a specific genre. And if the paranormal if the paranormal is a genre you want to write in, well, maybe you can kind of use your own, what you heard or what you heard from other people or so on and so forth, and you can fashion it into a novel. Now, I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy because it came easy to me, the writing of it now. I'm not saying it wasn't work, but everything just flowed, and my imagination took hold. I've been asked a good many times how I wrote this, and I'm telling you, that's exactly how I wrote it. And so I'm just using the example, and hopefully you can maybe learn something from the method that I used and create, a shivery story of your own. So this is doing really well, and I decided to come on and talk about it because when I read it myself, I can't believe I wrote it. So I am actually quite proud of it. So, and it's doing well, it's selling well, and ever since it was published, and So I hope you get around to taking a look. It's called Hennigan's Hand, The Ghost Woman Talks. The Ghost Woman Talks is a section that was put in the second edition because people were asking about this. There was a woman in there that I created actually, and all the characters were creations of mine except Mr. Hannigan. I mean, he was based on a real person. The rest of the people were creations, like characters I created. And the woman who kept coming and showing up everywhere, the ghost woman, she had a story all her own. She was in a shipwreck, so I decided to kind of tie up her story because people were so interested in what happened to her and everything. So, anyways, hope you check it out. So, have a great week, and the weather here past few days has been up and down and inside out, and weather like this, probably a good ghost story would be the real thing. So, thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.